Excellent. So, all right. So we're going to discuss the PPR and well, particular sections. We're going to focus on domain 1 and domain 3. We know that those areas are the areas that are the most weighted, and they really are sort of theoretically, and this is a theory test, the most important. Standard 1 is so very important to what makes a good teacher. So let's discuss it. We're going to begin already. And just take a look. I saw this thing on Twitter and I thought I'm going to use it and just begin our discussion with thinking about what creates a really great teacher. It's not just somebody who's an expert in their content area. It is a mixture of so many things. And in other classes, we've discussed how pedagogy is a profession, right? Teaching, it's a pedagogical profession. But pedagogy is a craft, it is a science, and it is, sort of like a skill. I don't know how to put it. There's so much that is involved to what makes a really great teacher. It's not just our content knowledge, but it's our creation of lessons that are appropriate for all students, our consistent and different, a diverse use of formative assessments to collect data and measure their growth, because it's about their growth, their academic growth, their social growth, their physical growth, all of it. So what makes good teachers? Great teachers, and I said good teachers, but great teachers help students reach goals. They inspire and they model kindness. Remember, students are always watching us. Great teachers are lifelong learners. Like, you guys are here on a Saturday, and that's why it really, it upsets me. It really, really upsets me when I hear people disparaging the teaching profession, or whether or not it's easy to become a teacher or it's easy being a teacher. All of that is just like this ridiculous fallacy. It's neither easy to become a teacher or to be a teacher, right? We do a lot of stuff. And great stuff, important stuff, like inspiring and modeling kindness for the younger generation. Great teachers are student-centered. I like to begin my sessions with another visual that is a just very basic teacher-centered, student-centered, but great teachers are mostly student-centered. We've done the least amount of direct instruction and mostly done, whether it's guided or individual practice and group stuff, more student-centered stuff. We build relationships. Relationships are important. Think about your most important teacher that you had, or the most memorable. You had a good relationship with them. You learned the best from them because you connected with them and had something where they inspired you. Building those relationships with children, the first step is knowing them, knowing your students. And the most basic of stuff are, what are their strengths? What is their, background? What is their interests? So building on that relationship. Great teachers are dependable. You can come to them and they are going to be kind, compassionate, and consistent with you. They're trustworthy. And that doesn't mean that you keep secrets for, referring to child abuse. That's not what being trustworthy means. Our first duty is to student safety. We're reliable, honest, and dedicated. We encourage and we support every single day, no matter what kind of teacher we are. If you're a PE teacher, awesome. PE teachers do so much for campuses, especially elementary and middle school. They're like sort of unofficial leaders and really can help model. If they are exhibiting negative habits, the kids that look up to them are going to exhibit them. But encourage language supporting in all of the areas and contexts, always, whether you teach theater, whether you're an English teacher, whether you're a math teacher, whether it's culinary arts or welding, that you are providing support for students in your classroom. And there's always going to be English language learners in your classroom in the state of Texas. We have some of the biggest numbers of English language learners and the biggest student population. We're a really large state. with a large, ELO population. We provide opportunities for service to others, collaborative and current, collaborative with other teachers. So this is standard 4. We collaborate with other teachers in our content area, and then cross-curricular, going and creating opportunities to align what you're doing with maybe your social studies teacher, so that the students have prior knowledge and they can talk about it and understand the context of the literature better. Being collaborative and using best and most current practices. About putting faith and trust in students. Sorry, guys. I want for you guys to understand that everything is an opportunity for modeling, for practice and error. And sometimes the kids are going to mess up, right? Even our children will mess up when we put our trust in them. We have to give them practice opportunities to build trust and faith in students, even those that have difficulty, with behavior and rules, opportunities to build back faith and trust in students. Are you a champion and you're an advocate for the students? That means that you should care about their other grades. If you're a middle school or high school teacher and you don't care about their other grades, then you're not doing your whole job, because it's not just about your content area. If you look at their grades, and I know you can see them because you can see them when you look at, at least when I was in the classes, you could everywhere see I could go look at all of their grades. And I would conference with them when I conference for progress reports for my class. If you were doing awesome in my class, cool story. Why do you have a 76 in math or a 67 in math? I care about you, and I know, and if I know you're an A student and you have a 76, I'm still going to talk to you, and try to find a way to get you support. Speaking with the students, being an advocate for them, even if it's not your class. Consistent and flexible. This means that, because you have to be consistent, and kids need consistency. Sometimes they don't have it at their house. They don't know what to expect. They need consistency, calm, non-chaotic environments in which to grow cognitively, emotionally, physically, all of it. So, we have to be consistent. We do procedures, we have rules in order to maintain safety and for things to become routine. However, there are times in which we have to be flexible and make exceptions and take the student as a human and remember that they are humans. They're our best customers. They're our customers, right? They have to learn from us, and they're also the product, and we are in the customer service industry. And they're the customers, and by extension, the parents, so it's a difficult dance. Again, we're always learning. Leave life-changing positive impacts. Again, you have teachers that do things with their students, and it impacts them for life in a positive way, or you remember it, even if you can think back to things that you did or that a teacher did that was out of the ordinary or very cool. And it impacts the students positively way after they leave your classroom. And it's very cool to see when it happens. Value your students. They're important. I don't care if you have all ELL students. They're valuable people, valuable humans. And some of my best writers have been English language learners, advanced high, because once they unlock the second language and they understand their first language and the second language, and in English is sort of like limiting. And you can say one word in English, but in Spanish, that same word has many different meanings and different cognates that have different higher vocabulary words. The writing was just more amazing. And so you value all of your students and build their understanding of their value. Find ways for them to see, hold the mirror in front of their face when they're doing amazing things. And there's opportunities for that all the time. You just happen to be open to see them and create opportunities for that to happen by knowing what your students need, things that they're strong in, and continuing to foster the growth of the whole child. So domain 1, standard 1, which is what we were talking about in large part, but sort of abstractly with that meme or whatever it was, is all about planning, instruction, and assessment for all students to build that whole child, build them physically, cognitively, socially, emotionally, linguistically, to help build them in all of those areas. So in order for us to do that, to plan for all of them, we must first be knowledgeable and be mindful. Okay, and this must be mindful in practice. Like you can like, oh, okay, diversity is important, la la la, and then just do the one lesson plan that's easy. Like I keep on grading the, I swear I'm gonna take it out. Teacher Builder's moving to a new system. It's very cool. I'm sorry for everyone who's finished their coursework and had to use what we are currently using. But it's gonna be much cooler, much easier for you to like check your progress rather than just individual grades and whatnot, and have to monitor your stuff. But the Madeline Hunter lesson plan is so basic. It's so sort of like engaging as far as driving the teacher to incorporate the ideas of diversity and the diversity within the classroom. And the UDL does such an amazing job. It does such an amazing job every single time if it's used to differentiate on the onset just by creation, because it thinks about diversity and it asks you to think about the different ways in which the students can be successful, the different actions, that different forms and products that they can produce. So student diversity in all forms, their development, their skill level, linguistic ability, their disabilities, their extra abilities, culture, gender, all of their forms of diversity. Developmentally appropriate. You should be planning developmentally appropriate for your age group and grade level that is specified or that you have. And we're going to discuss a little bit in detail. I'm going to want you guys to do a close reading of a paragraph that's just a definition of what it means developmentally appropriate, because they use this all the sorry guys, they use that all the time. Developmentally appropriate. And so what does it mean to be developmentally appropriate? And broadly speaking, we know it refers to theoretically what's appropriate for students as they go through different phases of development, right? But it also means a broader thing. So we're going to discuss that in just a bit. Skill levels that the students might have, we have to investigate. So we should, when we're planning instruction, also mindfully plan the cooperative learning groups in order to facilitate group growth. Remember, use all the resources that you have, and there are students at different skill levels with different abilities that are resources to other students when carefully placed in cooperative learning groups. And there's this classroom climate of a collectivist society where it's like one for all and all for one, helping all of us achieve together. In order to mix the skill levels, unmute yourself, guys. In order to mix the skill levels, let's say that I'm a teacher, I'm going to begin my school year. Miss Sauceda is going to begin the beginning of her school year, and she wants to do a cooperative learning group on the second day. I have several problems with this scenario already, but let's just say she's going to start on the second day doing a cooperative learning group. She wants to mindfully base them by skill level. What's the first thing that Miss Sauceda must do? What's a primary thing that Miss Sauceda must do in order to accomplish her goal? We're doing a cooperative learning task in the beginning of the year.
Ms. Sauceda, we cannot see the question.
Oh, no. I'm just asking you the question.
Oh, okay. Okay.
What would be the first thing I would have to do if I want to, because it says right here that you should, and I just want to, I'm trying to make a larger point, and let me get my thing out to highlight for you. So it says skill levels, and this comes from the standards. I just took like main points from the standards, but skill levels should be mixed in cooperative groups to facilitate growth. So we have like different skill levels here. So diversity, so it means diversity within your cooperative learning groups. So if I'm going to start my year as a 7th grade English teacher, and I'm going to do something at the beginning of the year, and I want to make sure that my students are in cooperative learning groups that are going to facilitate group growth, what's the first thing that I have to do as a teacher? What's the first thing I should do?
I would say get to know your kids first.
Yes, thank you, Chris, and whoever just said that. Who just said that?
Michelle.
Michelle, thank you. Yes. So I cannot put them by skill group yet. I don't know them. And it's something that I would talk to my principals, it happened to me a couple of times, not many times. I mean, I was a public school teacher for 16 years, and then I've taught teachers for the rest of the years 100%. But a couple of years I had a couple of assistant principals come in and ask me why I hadn't started the curriculum yet, why we hadn't gotten to the nitty-gritty of the district curriculum. And it's because I spent my first week, and sometimes if we needed it a little bit more, getting to know the kids, doing things to prepare procedural, getting them to understand the routines, building the actual first assignment and project that they were going to do. And it was where all their notes, all of their manipulatives, the foldables that we did were going to get put into the DJ, and it got me to learn about them. It got me to check their oral language proficiency. Lots of things went on during that week. It wasn't just a fun get to know Miss Sauceda week, although it was a fun get to know Miss Sauceda week. Lots of stuff was going on in preparation. And then never failing, I always had the highest scores, like never failing. So I took the time in the beginning, but of course you need the time in the beginning and so you have to have activities that are not super difficult as far as comprehension is, to sort of assess, and that could be conversations with them. My particular, and I'm going to show it to you right now, but my particular activity that I'm talking about is setting up their dialectical journal. We called it the DJs, and it was an assignment. I should try to look for it. I know I have it somewhere, but I'm gonna show you guys really quickly, turning on my. But this is what we undoubtedly, and I stole this idea from science because I saw the science teachers doing it, these interactive notebooks. And so I think on my 3rd year teaching, I started doing this with my students as well. And so this is where we had, I don't know if you guys can see it in my video here, but the different things that we put in here, but we put this together, and we this one doesn't have it because it's one of the early ones, but we put 2 together, we duct taped it. I purchased duct tape and brought it in for them to put the 2 together, so it had like a folder in the middle. One was for reading, one was for English, and so it was setting up like how we were going to do our daily stuff, our daily routines, vocabulary over here. So, and they had particular things that they had to include, things that would tell me about them, include pictures of their family, and they had to include quotes, sports teams, different things that they words that describe them was one of the first. So mine, this one says scholarly Sauceda. The first day, after we get finished with the paperwork, we played a game, and I knew everybody's name by the second day using this game. But it worked for me because I was an English teacher, and I was having them, look up a synonym that described them. And so I consider myself pretty scholarly, because I'm always learning. I always want to learn more. So scholarly Sauceda, and that was why I chose that. So on that day, everybody sort of said what their chose it. They used the thesaurus, chose theirs, and then we presented, and then we played a game, a memory game. And I was the first person always, and I was always the last one. And so most of the time we were able to successfully go through the whole class with everybody, without anyone forgetting, and really enjoying ourselves. So you cannot put them in cooperative groups to facilitate growth if you don't know their skill levels, what they bring to the table. So that needs to happen early on, an interest assessment, and just like an overall profile of the students that you have, where you're looking at what is their language proficiency, where are they at intermediate, or at level. Yeah, I have some ELLs. What level are they, closer to advanced, or are they just newly intermediate, still really having those specified characteristic descriptors of a intermediate student. Speaking of intermediate students, I have the ELP strategies here listed for increasing language proficiency. They're best practices for all. They're for increasing language proficiency, the ELP strategies, best practices, sheltered instruction. It's best practice for language proficiency, but it's best practice for everyone. So defining unfamiliar academic and social vocabulary that's in your lessons, that helps everyone. Helps special ed. It helps regular native English speakers. Let's not pretend that the United States has an amazing oral language proficiency. Everyone can benefit from more vocabulary instruction and practice utilizing it in the classroom. Framing the lesson, another sheltered instructional strategy, and explaining what we're going to be doing today, giving that background knowledge, and then at the end reviewing, and all between having pit stops where we check for understanding. This helps our ELL students. This helps our special ed students, those small pit stops during the lesson to check for understanding. Visuals. This is I'm still defining or like discussing sheltered instructional practices and ELL practices, but these are still best practices literally for everyone. Visuals are better for everyone to understand, to learn better. Connecting to prior knowledge and to the real world, connecting their understanding to prior knowledge. This is best practice for ELLs, but it's best practice for everyone. I don't care what if you're a native English speaker, if you can use the student's prior knowledge to connect to that new concept or that new skill, then that transfer of knowledge is going to be so much faster and quicker. Utilizing the real world makes it so much more important for the students and their brains. Their brains know to delete unimportant stuff. They know it's a survival, biological, cognitive thing, especially for our GT students. They really have difficulty if they can't see a real world application. And so not only does it make it more meaningful, but it helps clarify. Let me clear this. So as long as I was able to explain to my and this is something I wish someone had told me, but you have rights as a new teacher, and if and even if you feel like, well, I'm a first year teacher, I really, can't say anything, trust yourself and trust your knowledge and trust what are pedagogical standards, which are the law, what they say in the TEXES. And as long as you get things done by the end of the semester, which you will, especially if you know your kids more, you will have less difficulty, less stalls, and less reteaching if you've spent the time to create a classroom climate that is effective for all learners. If you've spent time, solidifying routines, procedures, getting the things that you need in order, gathering, and assessing, gathering data about the different things that you need to know about your students, and then getting started with the work. Well, hold on one moment, guys. I needed my water. All right, so I wanted to show you this, and I wanted to spend a little bit more time, but we've already spent too much time on what we were talking about before. So I'm just going to read it for you, and I'm going to talk to you about how it sort of like plays into all of the PPR, all of the levels of the PPR, especially domain 1 and domain 3, which is what this is about. So the NAEYC, which is like the national something about youth, early youth committee, defines developmentally appropriate practice as methods that promote, and I'm going to get my highlighter here. Methods that promote optimal development, each child's optimal development and learning through strengths-based, not at a weakness approach, play-based approach to joyful, engaged learning. Think about joyful, engaged learning. It has to be fun. Remember, making those impacting life changing activities that students will remember. Educators implement developmentally appropriate practice by recognizing multiple assets all young children, and they all have them, bring to or the early child program unique individuals and members of families and communities, unique individuals, even our early child guys, even the little kindergartners, building on each child's strengths and taking care to not harm any aspect. Do not harm any aspect of the child's physical, cognitive, social, or emotional well-being. Educators design and implement learning environments to help all children achieve their full potential across all domains of development, all domains, and across all content areas. Developmentally appropriate practices recognizes and supports each individual as a valued. Remember, we saw that meme in the beginning that said that a great teacher values their students. And I can't tell you that I like literally valued all of mine. And I've been lucky enough to have some of them actually be students of mine while I, in my earlier years of when I started teaching teachers. They went through a program and they were my students as as teacher interns. So it was, and I even got to go observe some of them, like some of them were in my area. So very cool. And I definitely valued them as little humans in my classroom, and contributing members to our learning community. Valued and contributing members of our learning community. As a result, to be developmentally appropriate, practices must also be culturally, linguistically, and ability appropriate for each child. In order for it to be developmentally appropriate, in order for us to do that, it has to also be culturally, linguistically, and ability appropriate. All right, guys, now we're going to get into the question answer portion, and there's a little bit of instruction between, but I'm just going to, I don't know why my computer's being kind of weird. Okay, identifying keywords and phrases. I didn't put the whole shebang in there because I knew I was going to be long-winded with this instruction today. But let's review them. Somebody tell me. It says identify keywords and phrases, but that's not all that I say to do. What do I say to do, guys?
A ver, which of the following scenarios explains the
No,
situation?
no, no. What are the steps when I say to when you're gonna read an answer choice? You can write them in the chat or you can say them. What do I say? What should you do before each question? You need to do what for each question?
Check for keywords. What are the keywords that we need to look
For
for?
sure, that's one of them for sure. But what else?
Explains.
Critically read. Thank you, Chris
Read.
Williams. Mindfully critically read in order to assess the keywords and phrases. We need to look at what is most important here. We need to ask ourselves, what is the goal for the teacher or in the scenario? And what is the question asking us in layman's terms, right? Is this using very specific pedagogical vernacular or words? So we are going to be wordsmiths and pick out all of the important words with everyone. So we read mindfully and always remember that, guys, that this exam is meant to be tricky based on the words. It is a Pearson is a business and they only make an increase in profits if the test is increasingly more challenging. And so the minimal difference in words and in the way in which we evaluate the questions is important to find the correct answer and not be sort of trapped in the trick. So let's do this one. Which of the following scenarios exemplifies the situation in which a child's separation anxiety behavior? So this is about developmentally appropriate, like what's normal at different ages, I guess, in a different way. Which of the following scenarios exemplifies a situation in which a child's separation anxiety behaviors signify the need to intervene and provide a developmentally appropriate response and support? All right, guys, what is the question asking us? What is the keywords? What keywords and phrases? We've mindfully read. What's here that's important?
Situation in anxiety behavior.
We have, in which of the following separation anxiety behaviors signify, so separation anxiety behaviors, which of the following, what does exemplify mean, guys? Remember I said try to put it in layman's terms. What does exemplify mean?
Basically means that what is the perfect example of this?
Right, what's the perfect example in which of a kid's separation anxiety behaviors or actions, and what does signify mean? Signifying the need to intervene.
Signifying the need to intervene. And
Is
provide.
signify means apply.
Signifying.
Signify, to show, right? Or to signal. Which of the following behaviors shows us, signifies a need, shows us a need to intervene and provide developmentally approach, response, and support? So let's put it in our own words. What's the goal? We're looking for which one of the examples that they've listed below, the following examples, shows us a need to intervene based on what is developmentally appropriate response and support. Okay, let's see. Let's see what we can identify. A 4-year-old hides behind her parents' guardian's leg at pre-kindergarten drop-off while waiting for the teacher to greet her. A 5-year-old repeatedly bites his nails and appears quiet at the start of the kindergarten school year. A 7-year-old pleads with his father to stay with him in his first grade classroom and complains of stomach aches daily at school. An 8-year-old prefers to work alone rather than small groups in her second grade classroom. Now, I always say, I want for you to use process of elimination. in each answer choice, it's weigh it against what we know the question is asking, the keywords and phrases, what the goal is, weigh it against it, and use process of elimination to eliminate ones we know for sure are the wrong answer. They're not doing that. And never just sort of choose one off the bat that looks good, because they do specifically write answer choices that your eyes are going to be drawn to. So let's take a look at these. What can we eliminate right off the bat?
B as in boy.
Yeah, we have a 5-year-old who is, quietly biting his nails at the start of the school year, and is like, shy. So that's not a huge deal. 5-year-olds typically, and some of them, many of them are shy. I know my son, when I dropped him off, and he's not even shy, like in person, with his family. It was his first foray into school ever. So he had never, and I remember being so curious about it at first. And but he grew out of that real fast, but that's not anything to be worried about. What else might we not be worried about, or doesn't show us, because we're looking for an example that shows us a need to intervene?
A.
A.
A is normal.
A is totally normal for a 4-year-old to hide behind a parent or guardian when they're being dropped off. A 7-year-old pleads with his father to stay home, and an 8-year-old perform to work alone rather than in small groups.
I think D is normal and C would be the answer.
Yeah,
I mean,
D is definitely one that if you have an introvert kid, they're always going to want to work alone and not.
Yeah, my daughter, she's 18, and she can work in cooperative group learnings with the best of them, but she prefers to work alone. It is her preference, and that never went away. And it's not because C is not normal. And actually, stomach aches are a sign of anxiety, right? And so this is daily. The use of the word daily here in answer choice A. And so this one, an 8-year-old prefers to work. Well, like, that's normal. It doesn't say she's like refuses to work and will throw a fit. Preferring to work alone is going to be a natural thing that we're going to see at all age levels. However, that doesn't mean that we're going to let it happen all the time. Use your judgment, be flexible. We have to do cooperative learning, but allow them to shine on their own as well at times. So pleading, look at the word choice. It's a critical reading exam. So when I teach my students, or when I taught my students to analyze, and I even still teach, the ELAR teachers to analyze poetry, but look at the word choice, pleading with the father to stay with him. And this is already at first grade. So we're talking about 6 or 7, mostly 7. My daughter was 7. And then complains daily of stomach aches. And we don't want the kids sick daily. So yeah, C is the best answer choice for sure. So this is going to be about our ALPS. A middle school English language learner is writing at an intermediate level of English language proficiency. Oh wait, a middle school English language learner who is writing at the intermediate level of English language proficiency is most likely to demonstrate writing that includes which of the following ones? What's important? What are we looking for? And
Intermediate level of English, right?
Intermediate
English
level.
Language proficiency, intermediate level. Or
Right.
writing. Who is writing?
Writing. Because remember, for our ELLs, when we're talking about our ELLs, we are always trying to make activities and support them in listening skills, speaking skills. What else, guys? What else? Listening, speaking,
And writing.
writing, and what else? We're missing one.
Listening, speaking, writing.
Listening,
Another one I
blank, and writing. What else do we have to teach the help support them with?
Understanding.
no
Reading.
Thank
reading.
you. Reading. Yes. That is the basis of language proficiency, right? Like all of the different areas of language: listening proficiency, speaking proficiency, reading proficiency, and writing. And we have particular strategies and activities and support scaffolds that we utilize in each of these different areas for listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and at each of the different levels of proficiency: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and advanced high. But in this question, we're specifically talking about, and I just mentioned these guys because I want for you to be mindful when you see English language arts and reading or ELLs mentioned, that they're not asking about a specific task like writing or a specific thing like oral language proficiency, which includes both listening and speaking skills. So for this one, we are looking for something that would be indicative of an intermediate level. What else is important for us? A keyword that's not yet highlighted.
They're in middle school.
Middle school. So middle school.
And most likely.
To demonstrate
likely.
writing.
Right. So let's see. We have so they would most like intermediate students are most likely to demonstrate or show us writing that includes a list of memorized phrases, B, use of native language, C, misuse of past and future tenses, D, abstract content. So what can we eliminate? Because we know it doesn't go with our keywords and phrases.
Abstract content, D.
Right. So it's never going to include abstract content. Like this, what would be an example? Like what level of English proficiency would we imagine to see abstract content in there?
Advanced high.
That's correct. Advanced high. All right, what else can we eliminate and say that's not something that you're going to find likely in their writing?
Use native language.
Letter C.
C would be the
Ya, mijo. Ya hablé de con la
We
gente.
can eliminate A.
you can eliminate A. definitely.
Yes, so eliminate A. So the important thing to understand, and next Saturday in the midst of some of our questions, I'll show you some examples of intermediate students, but it is it is language, right? They're utilizing the English language and they might occasionally throw in some native language, but it's not going to be most likely to include that. And the list of memorized phrases, nobody does that at all. What someone does do, or what one level does do, is that beginners, when they're taking a writing test, like anytime I assess my students, and I was always the one that administered and assessed their TELPAs, their TEXES assessment for English language proficiency, beginners, sometimes if they were new and they came in like unluckily, right, especially at the time that we're going to be assessing, and let's say they got a
Miss Stephanie, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but there's like a lot of background noise. Can you please mute everybody?
Sure, absolutely. Let me do that. How do I do that?
Thank you.
Yes. Let me see. It's not letting me do it because of this. I'm having difficulty doing that. Why is it not letting me meeting? Okay, did everybody do it? Thanks, guys. Beautiful. Excellent. So, beginners, as I was saying, sorry that got erased, in their writing, I would, especially because it's also one of our strategies, like you would do for a special ed student or an ELL student, but write the prompt at the top or have it printed at the top. And many of my beginners would just write what was the prompt over and over and over again, just a copy of like the words and phrases within the prompt, with just like straight copying, like not even a list of memorized words. I wouldn't say that it's anything that specific at all. So, and the use of native language is indicative of beginners. So the one that is we're most likely to see is the misuse of past and future tenses. They can only talk in the present tense. That's why we, as ELAR teachers, would have them write a narrative, to write about a time that they did something in the past, because it was that one. I mean, we didn't just grade them based on one piece of writing. We took several samples and we graded them holistically. But typically the ones that gave us so much knowledge were those that asked them to write about future, for sure past the most, future, and content specific things. That was another thing that beginners and intermediates just can't do. Talk fluently about or write fluently about content specific things.
Ms. Sauceda, I had a quick question.
Sure.
So when I took the PPR, I took it on Tuesday. One of the questions I remember, it wanted me to find out the level of proficiency for EOL with reading, and it mentioned high frequency words with visual cues, and I think that was one I got confused on. I think I put advanced, but because of the high frequency kind of got me, but I'm not sure. I was in between intermediate and advanced, but it said like high frequency with that coordinates with visual cues.
Okay, so unfortunately, high frequency words are words like in English language arts and reading talk. Those are words we see all the time in language, and we want for those to be super automatic. Even in early child, like when we're teaching EC through 6, English teachers, and we have the lists of high frequency words, and we try to get all new students in early child to become familiar and get that automaticity with those reading words. They don't need pictures because they speak English, but this would be, I think, something that we would do with beginner students, because high frequency words would be like house, mom, car, the, she, he, and so, and the need for pictures would also indicate an intermediate, although not intermediate, beginner, although an intermediate still benefit. We all benefit from using visuals, but in order to understand high frequency word, the need of a student to need visuals, then I would think that it would be best between beginner and intermediate. And we'll check specifically, because we're going to go to the ALPS to check before the class ends. We're going to go back to it to look specifically which reading sight word wise. And do you remember anything more about the scenario?
Not really. It just wanted me to find out the level, but I remember that I don't remember the actual grade level, but it said that it was high frequency that coordinates with visual cues, and student is able to read a few more words like after that, or like is still able to read, I guess, without the visual cues.
I would say intermediate. Intermediate.
Yeah, I think the high frequency is what got me, because I'm thinking like that's like advanced words, but in reality, I guess that they're just use them for beginners. So I think that's what messed me up. That's why I was like, well, maybe it'd be advanced.
Yeah, high frequency words means we see them a lot in reading, reading and in language. And so, yeah, I think that based on what you're saying, that the best answer would be intermediate. Because, you know, having those prompts with those visuals, being able to do more themselves means they have some level of skill already in English, meaning
Yeah.
that they're intermediate. Beginners don't have English at all, not speaking English, not listening English, not reading English, not writing English. We're really building the basics of social language, and the basic interpersonal communication skills, the BICS.
Yes, yeah, that's why I think that was one of the questions I was very confused on, but now it makes more sense. Now I get a better sense of it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So here we have a middle school teacher, English teacher, a middle school English language learner who is writing at a beginner level of English language proficiency is most likely to demonstrate writing that includes lists of memorized words, use of native language, repetition of ideas, drawing. So it's the same thing that we looked at before, but at the beginner level, which is why I didn't take so much time doing the analysis. We have a middle school teacher, learner who is writing at a beginner level now, right? Writing is what we're looking at. And we're looking at, again, the most likely skill, the most likely to demonstrate which of these things. Memorize lists of words, use of native language, repetition of ideas, drawings. And I sort of gave this one away with what I said before moving to this question, but what can we eliminate because they're not going to do that? That's not what they're doing. Or what is most likely?
D and C.
Yes, D and C. So they don't know enough of English to like repeat ideas. They might repeat the prompt over and over again. What other one did you say?
D, drawing. I think.
Drawings, yeah. So you're not gonna have them drawing. You'll have them. If any drawing takes place, it'll look like they're trying to draw the prompt over and over again, like they're having difficulty writing the letters, like they're new to them, and it looks like that. But no, they're not going to be drawing anything. Why can we eliminate A?
Memorize word, I think it's not beginning, it should be intermediate, right?
Yeah, memorized words, they're not going to be like they're not going to have any memorized words. So they're going to be using their native language predominantly. You're going to see that, or they'll be copying whatever printed language is on their paper, the text that they have. Sorry, guys, my thing keeps on freezing on me. My mouse. Wait. Okay. A fourth grade teacher develops a series of questions as part of a thematic reading unit on the seasons for a class. Which of the following strategies should the teacher use to effectively apply universal design for learning UDL guidelines while gathering information from students about their prior knowledge on the topic? So let's go back and break this down. What is important here?
Fourth grade.
Fourth grade is important here.
UDL guidelines.
UDL guidelines, super important.
And thematic reading unit.
Right, so thematic reading unit.
Prior knowledge.
Yeah, prior knowledge. So while gathering information from students she wants to gather information about students, about prior knowledge on the topic. So she develops a series of questions as part of this unit. And she wants to effectively apply UDL, which I cannot say enough that it is my favorite of all instructional designs, because it allows, the teacher to just effortlessly differentiate for students in such an easy and wonderful way and mindful way every single time. And obviously you can't always do every support that's needed, but the more practiced you are every day about it, the more you're going to be implementing and the better you get at it, and it just becomes effortless. So let's take a look at these answer choices. So we have A, projecting the questions accompanied by symbols and pictures and having the students respond by speaking or writing. B, distributing a handout with the questions for the students to read independently and answer in writing using a dictionary if needed. C, asking the students to use hand gestures to act out their answers to questions the student is asking them. D, have a representative group of students respond verbally to the questions while the other students use gestures to express approval of the sample group responses. So what can you eliminate and bet yourself $5? This is not the correct answer.
D as in dog.
D, we are not going to just have one student. She's trying to gather information about all of her students. That's the goal, to gather prior knowledge about all of the students have, and she has these questions she wants to ask them. What strategy or activity can she do in order to gather this information? Having one student verbally respond and other students express approval is not going to do much for her, getting a holistic picture of the students' needs and how best to support them. So that's out. What else can we eliminate?
We can eliminate
C.
B, distribute a handout with a question for the students to read independently and answer in writing using a dictionary if needed.
Right. So why does this not comply with UDL? What is UDL all about?
Universal, about meeting all the needs, holistic.
All the needs. So this is hand gestures to act out questions. And so I first of all, I find this very difficult as far as like a valid way of assessing students' knowledge using hand gestures to sort of mime out a response. But in any event, those that need oral presentations, visual, that then it might be difficult for them to just use hand gestures, and they speak orally or need something to explain their stuff. C doesn't do it for them, so it's not for all students. What
I could
about
see C working if it was like a pre-K or kindergarten class, if you're wanting like falling leaves, and you have your hands make the leaves, or the wind blowing. But that's going to be more kindergarten pre-K where you're wanting that.
Right. And so but it doesn't jive with this notion of like a thematic reading unit. Why would we use hand gestures? It's for a reading unit. It's going to be about reading and understanding the reading, I would imagine. And just knowing that anytime we want to expand on reading, that just automatically we should be including pictures or any other graphics that are accompanying to help understanding for the students, and to have the students have the ability to respond. Notice how this one allows them to respond either in writing or in speaking. So she wants to gather information about their prior knowledge. She's not trying to assess their writing skills. So why not allow them to orally give you answer these questions on how they understand this? Or if not, if they don't want to speak, then instead they can write it out, but giving them multiple avenues, multiple means of action, multiple means of understanding by not just, having reading, but symbols and pictures, videos whenever need be. So A is the correct answer. Good job, guys. Oh, sorry.
Would it be possible to go over UDL during one of our classes sometime?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We totally can. I'll bring it up in the beginning of Wednesday's class. We'll do a little bit of UDL and just talk about why it's so great.
Thank you.
So here we have and this one is about instructional objectives. So before we were talking about UPS, we're still in domain 1. We haven't even gotten to domain 2, but remember, really guys, domain 1 is so important and there's so much of domain 1 in domain 3. So a 9th grade world geography teacher is planning a unit on how geographic processes affect political situations in different areas of the world. To begin designing appropriate learning goals for the unit, the teacher should first, okay, what are the keywords and phrases?
9th grade.
Yes, it is 9th grade world geography, and they're planning a unit. So this is a part of the planning process on how geographic processes affect political situations in different areas of the world. In order to begin, and whenever they say to begin, to end this, in the middle, as a pause, like pay attention to the time markers. What time and place does this take place? So to begin, designing appropriate learning goals for the unit. What should they do first? What should they begin with? So we have review the information presented in the geography textbook, conference with the team of world geography teachers, consult the statewide student objectives for geography, or create an assignment timeline for this geography unit. What is the most important first step for this 9th grade teacher to do in order to begin planning for this unit? What can we eliminate?
Can we eliminate the D? Create the assignment timeline for the geography unit?
Right, you can't do an assignment timeline. We haven't even a plan for anything yet. So how would we know what kind of assignments we're even, or like, so this assignment timeline is appropriate. It is appropriate for your planning or whatever, especially to have it available for your students so they know what's due and when. You know, don't make it a thing you just mention and you hope they write it down. Please don't. Give it to them in writing. Write it on the board, have them write it, and then give it to them somewhere in a hard copy. But you would do this, but it certainly doesn't take place first. So yeah, we can bet ourselves $5 D's out. What else?
To begin.
What's the first thing we would do?
You can eliminate A, but I think the answer is C, because you need to know what they need before you can even start the unit.
That is correct. So A is out because we're gonna get the things in the, but you know, this is a resource for us, but it's not the curriculum and where we get our objectives when we're planning. Where we get the objectives, student objectives, is in the state curriculum listed for us as TEKS. We all have TEKS, Texas Essential Knowledge. They have deemed them as essential, and you can only read them on like the Office of the Secretary of State. It's that official. It's the law. And we must consult the statewide objectives to make sure, I mean, that we are doing them, or the statewide curriculum, so make sure that we are doing those and we're meeting those objectives. So, we would not conference with, hey guys, can you mute yourself if it's especially loud in your background? Thank you so much. Okay, let me see. Oops. All right, so I put in highlight instructional objectives means learning objectives, learning goals, learning objectives, all of those words, that's semantics, they're interchangeable, substitutes for each other. Which of the following is an appropriate and clearly written objective for a U.S. history teacher to incorporate when designing a lesson. So let's look at the keywords and phrases. What are they asking us? What is the question asking us? What is the goal here? What is most important?
Appropriate and clearly written.
Appropriate and clearly written are very important.
When designing a lesson.
Designing a lesson. So which of the following is a appropriate and clearly written? We're looking for which one of these things is going to be to incorporate for U.S. history. It's appropriate and it's clearly written. So says, TEA. So let's take a look. Students will celebrate the effects of the American Revolution in America and Europe. Will celebrate the effects of the American Revolution in America and Europe. Students will see how the American Revolution helped shape the country. Students will explain the major events that caused the American Revolution. Students will realize what led to the American Revolution from the perspective of the colonists. So, what do we want to eliminate and why? I'm curious to know.
A.
Right, and why do you want to eliminate A?
Because how do the students celebrate the effects? Are we gonna have a party?
Right, I agree too. A, this word celebrate draws your attention to that, does it not? And what's really important, like it's one of the most important rules for objectives. I've said it in other classes. What is most important about learning objectives? Like what we measure or what a good learning objective is and a bad one. It has to be appropriate, clearly written, and it must be, there's one other thing.
Measurable.
Measurable. How do you measurable their celebration? How do you measurable? How do you measure their celebration? This is not something that is measurable. And so
Well,
that's
and how would
an objective.
ELLs, I mean, ELLs that haven't ever really heard about the American Revolution,
Right.
how would ELLs even understand the concept of that?
Right. It wouldn't be appropriate, and it's not even really clearly written. I had to read it twice myself while reading it aloud. So
Ms. Sauceda, one question over here
Yes.
from me. So designing a lesson means kind of beginning of the lesson, beginning of the planning of the lesson.
so the designing of a lesson begins with your learning objectives. And so you don't want to have too many learning objectives in one lesson, especially not for the younger kids, right? You don't want to overwhelm them. We want to practice a few of them and try to meet different things, both language objectives and academic objectives. But we have to go to our TEKS in order to get those
Design a
academic-
lesson.
yeah, those academic objectives that we have to cover. And then we go to the ELPs to get the language objectives. What should they be learning as far as language and being able to do as far as language? So we're going to practice doing this, listening and speaking about detailed events. That's a very particular language objective. So what else can we eliminate from here?
D as in dog, because the perspective of the colonists, it's going to be kind of hard to determine what their perspective is unless you're like reading a book or what is
Right,
it, like an
and-
autobiography about it.
How do you measure if they realize it? What does this even mean? How, the students will realize it? Like it just seems it's no. The wording is not. So and then we have the students will see how the American Revolution helped shape the country, or students will explain the major events that caused the American Revolution. Which of these is most appropriate and most clearly written? learning objective that will be appropriate to incorporate when you're going to design a lesson. Like
I
that,
think
like that's the objective. Which one of these would be better to design the lesson? You said what? Which one?
C.
B.
Yeah, C is the correct answer. So B, having them see how they I don't know how you measure C. They might if that said, like, students will describe or discuss how the American Revolution helped shape the country. That's something that is measurable, but they didn't say that. They said C. And that's not appropriate or clearly written. How does one see that? And so the students are going to have to explain the different major events, and that's how we're going to measure them, and that's very clearly written. And so obviously we'll talk about the different events, and then they'll have to explain the different events that helped cause that and understand that it caused it.
Ms. Sauceda,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry to interrupt. Are there any buzzwords that we could be looking for that are going to be synonymous with measurable? Because explain is a good buzzword, but are there any other buzzwords we could be looking out for?
So right, discuss, they're going to be all of your Bloom's taxonomy words, like all of the different ways in which the students can do and think about things. And I have a list, and we'll take a look at it, the different things that the students, they'll need to identify, or the student will compare the different events that caused the American Revolution, compare and contrast the major events so those type of Bloom's taxonomy skills or things, those are going to be the buzzwords that you're going to see.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So moving on to domain 3, finally. I don't know where we are on time. I think we're cutting it close, and we have a lot more to go. I think we're like halfway through the PowerPoint. So domain 3 includes, like we discussed, and why we spent so much time on domain 1, standard 1, which is all about instruction and assessment, designing appropriate instruction and assessment for all students, right? Lots of different ways in which we can measure them, and we measure them in order to collect data so that we can help them grow. We measure them so that we can help them grow academically. We measure them so we can help them grow linguistically, emotionally, all of it. Standard 3 of our pedagogical standards document refers to effective instruction via communication, responsive instruction, and timely feedback. So domain 3 includes standard 1, which we spent a long time on, standard 3, which is about effective communication. We're going to talk about that. Responsive instruction means that you are collecting data and assessing, you are collecting data observation wise, and that you are catching ways to instruct your student further, assessing their needs, identifying needs, and providing responsive instruction, and timely feedback is part of that. Being not seeing a student do something incorrect and not mentioning it, but allowing them to get it wrong in the quiz is not being a responsive educator. You can't just say, okay, well, I did the direct instruction and they should know by now. I've said it before. I don't care how many times you've said it. Some kids have ADHD and need to hear it 1,000 times. And so making sure that you're being responsive to the needs of all the students, and that you're providing instruction wherever you see the need, no matter how many times you've gone over it before. It also includes technology application. I just had a student that passed their exam. They took it last week, and he emailed me saying thanks for the help, but he also gave us some helpful hints. And one of them was about hardware. There were questions about hardware. What was an output hardware? So I want for you guys to take a look at the standards that are in your Google Drive folder, and it tells you about the different hardwares that you have to know about, and so the basics of what we have to know regarding technology, and some of the more complex questions is how do we utilize that in the classroom. Competency 7 is all about, and this is what I said, there's like extra instruction in here, is all about you understanding and applying principles for communicating effectively in a variety of teaching and learning contexts, a variety of teaching and learning contexts to a variety of different students with a variety of different needs. It's all about communication. Remember, in the beginning of class, I spoke about building relationships and how important that is. In order to build relationships, you have to talk. Think about it. The more people talk to each other and get to know each other, the better their relationship is, the more they know each other. So communication is key. And I think my son was telling me that I don't know what the exact percentage is. Well, I'll look it up, but for that somebody gets the message from you more so from nonverbals and the way that the environment is set up and the things that we're doing than the things that you actually say. So that's sort of a theme for the rest of the slides. So let's talk about, it's about listening to your students is just as much an important communication skill. Listening. Don't just be a talker, be a listener to your students' needs and to the things that they're saying. In order to become a master, you have to become a master listener. You have to have effective body language. That means you're mindful of your nonverbals, and the things that you're doing nonverbally are coming across as positive and not negative, and not be beguiling or in opposition of what you're saying verbally, because you might be saying things verbally that are positive, but if your nonverbals and your body language are sending a different message, I don't care how loudly you speak, it's not what's going to be heard. The student is going to get, she doesn't like me, or she thinks I can't do it. And for a lot of kids, they internalize it because they want their teachers to like them. I've never met a student that didn't want me to like them and didn't want me to be proud of them. And I never met a student I wasn't proud of. So it works out for the both of us. Demonstrate clear, accurate communication in the teaching and learning process. So while you're doing direct instruction, while you're doing guided practice, and during the learning process, that's when they're doing group activities, that's when they're working on their own, that's when they're doing, think, pair, share, and uses language that is appropriate to students' age, interests, and background. Okay, appropriate to their age, interest, and background. Clear, accurate communication. When a teacher is planning an instructional activity for a culturally diverse 9th grade class, the teacher wishes to ensure that the activity will be effective in prompting all students' learning. The teacher can best achieve this goal by asking himself whether the activity he is planning something. Let's go look and break this down together, guys. And I asked this overarching, and I want you to think about it as we're dissecting or analyzing this scenario together. What do you communicate by the lessons that you create, by the questions that you act, by the disposition that you carry in the classroom? What do I communicate non-verbally? Because my son told me some outrageous number, like most of our message is communicated like 90% non-verbally. I want to get the exact number, but it's a lot. And so what do I communicate in what I build and what I'm saying non-verbally? So this teacher is planning an activity for a culturally diverse. I did one for you. What else is important?
It's an instructional activity for a 9th grade class.
Oops, that's right. 9th grade. What's the goal?
Activity will be effective in prompting all students' learning.
All students learning, right? All. We want to achieve this goal. When they say best, achieve, most appropriate, They might have given you more than one appropriate responses, but one is more appropriate based on the specificity of what we discussed right now. We're looking for an instructional strategy for culturally diverse ninth grade class. That can mean a lot of things. So in order to be effective in prompting all student learnings, what can we do? What activity should we plan? Or what should we, the teacher can message by asking himself whether the activity is planning. Okay, uses an instructional format that is likely to be familiar to all of the students in his class. B, occasionally include identifiable elements from cross-cultural groups represented in the classroom. C, offers students maximum flexibility in determining how they wish to accomplish intended learning goals. D, is accessible and meaningful to students with varied life experiences and backgrounds. So we are looking for the best. AKA, we might have more than one thing you might do, but one you for sure need to do. Okay. What can we eliminate?
I think we could eliminate B as in boy.
And A.
We're doing, okay, so they're gonna create an activity that will, what are we eliminating really quickly?
B as in boy because it's occasionally.
Thank you, yes. Occasionally includes identifiable elements from the cultural groups represented in the classroom. So this is only about, so this is about identifiable, occasionally. No, this is not the best that we have here. What else is not the best?
I think we could also eliminate A because not everything is going to be familiar to all students.
An instructional format that is likely to be familiar to all students. I don't even know what that means, or like, I don't know, like I really just don't know. But yeah, so an instruction is highly unlikely. I mean, maybe utilizing that, I don't know why I can't think of it right now, but it's the box we use for vocabulary, and every now and then the word escapes my memory. But no, that's not the best way to plan for diverse students. What else? Maximum flexibility in determining how they wish to accomplish intended learning goals, or make sure the activity is accessible and meaningful to students with varied life experiences and background knowledge. Which is the best?
Kind of want to lean towards C just because they every time I read something it says to offer like different ways that they can
That's true. Different ways is not maximum flexibility. That means you get to decide, and different ways means like you can do it orally, you can do it with media, you can write about it, you can like represent it in like however way it's feasible, providing alternatives. But maximum flexibility, like I have such uncomfortability with any extremes on this exam. This all business, this maximum flexibility in determining how they wish, but flexibility means they get to choose between two. That is important. We want it to be effective for all students, but they specifically said culturally diversity. And the only one that really talks about diversity and taking that into consideration with planning is to make sure that the activities are accessible and meaningful to students with varied life experiences and background knowledge. Do you see how we came to that, guys? Are we-
Yes.
all right.
Yes.
Okay. We do want to give them flexibility in determining how to accomplish, but not maximum, like you get to decide how you show me what you know. That's too much. We need to give them parameters and have means by which to assess them, right? So you should have a couple or a few, if you're an all-star, different alternatives to them showing you what they know. And they won't always pick the same one. They won't, I promise you. They'll do different things because they'll see other people doing different things and say, hey, that was cool. And you had to do less work than me, and you kind of said the same thing and you showed it in a different way, and they want to try their skills in different ways. Okay, so going back, because I forgot to stop, there's a little pause. What does this communicate to the students in the classroom if they notice accessible and meaningful activities in their daily lessons? What is it? What is that teacher communicating? Taking that. What does it communicate, guys? To the students.
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time? The background noise is really
I'm so
like,
sorry, guys. So in this question, the teacher is taking into consideration the needs of the culturally diverse students and the activities, and planning accessible and meaningful activities to students with varied life experience and background knowledge for his culturally diverse students. What does that show to them? Because they are going to notice it. They're going to see themselves. They're going to see, oh, myself in this lesson, if it's meaningful and it speaks to different varied life experiences and background knowledge. What does that say to the student about what the teacher's communicating?
that they're important.
They
They're
are
valued.
important. They are valued. And that's the most important part. That's like the, most important part of what we do is to convince them that they are valuable and show them the parts of them that and the ways in which they can shine, help create activities for them to do so. So this one I'm going to ask at the end, what does my lesson communicate? Again, a second grade class includes students from a variety of cultural and linguistic backgrounds. As a teacher develops and implements classroom learning centers, it would be most appropriate to apply which of the following principles related to student diversity. Okay, which keywords and phrases, guys? Only unmute yourself if you have a sort of quiet background. I apologize.
Class. Second grade
Second
class.
grade, right?
With a variety of culture and linguistic background.
Thank you. Variety. Variety means diverse. You have many. And we should have a variety of activities, a variety of supports, a variety of products or actions the students can do. But we have a variety of cultural linguistic backgrounds. What else is important for us?
Develops and implements learning centers.
Yeah, she's trying to develop and implement learning centers. And we're trying to find, and again, here we see the most appropriate, it would be most appropriate to apply which of the following principles related to student diversity. So again, we're talking about student diversities. And again, of course, the correct answer is going to communicate you are valuable. So we don't just communicate, and that's what I was trying to get at. We're not just communicating to the students based on what we say to them during direct instruction. The entire planning of our lesson communicates something to the students, that they're valuable, that you see them, that you know them, that you want them to succeed, all important things necessary for our students to be whole humans when they leave us. So we're looking for which of the principles? Let's take a look. Learning center materials and activities should reflect and accommodate differences among students in the classroom. Each learning center should feature activities designed specifically to enhance students' knowledge of the various groups represented in the classroom. Each learning center should include a message encouraging students to work with classmates they haven't worked with before. Learning centers should be designed to emphasize commonalities among diverse students.
I think we could eliminate C because teachers will usually put the groups together by like tables or however.
Right.
Well, and you also always have that one or two kids that are left out because they're introverts. They don't want to work with anybody.
Right, absolutely. So we want to know which of the following, we have a difference in cultural and linguistic backgrounds and so that's two different things. We have cultural and linguistic, not the same thing. Cultural means a lot of stuff. Linguistic means a very particular thing. What does linguistic mean in layman's terms? It's another word for linguistics. My degree is in linguistics. I have a master's degree in linguistics. Language, yeah. So it's a language, yes, background. So we're different cultural and language backgrounds, and we're looking for the most appropriate principle to apply for these learning centers, most appropriate to accommodate all of them in second grade. So what else?
I think we could eliminate B as in boy because it does not say anything about diversity.
Right, and so this is about each learning center should, so this is each learning center should feature, it's going to be featured, designed specifically to enhance or to build the students' knowledge of various groups represented in the classroom. So that's not going to be our goal and the main feature in the center, in centers for learning centers. That's not the main feature. Would we want to try to include features of the different cultures, linguistic backgrounds that we had? Absolutely. But each learning center is not going to feature each activity designed, and a teacher develops and implements classroom learnings the most appropriate to apply with the principles related to student diversity. That's not it. But we would want to do it, but it as much as possible. What else?
I think the answer is A.
Yeah, we wouldn't design the learning centers for commonalities among the diverse group of students to emphasize commonalities. That's not really something we would focus on. We would do it in a, group them based on different things. We wouldn't group all of the kids who were beginner English speakers all together because they couldn't speak English. Like, how beneficial would a learning center based on their commonality linguistically? That's not helpful. I want them to be different. I want to have English experts in my learning group with my language learners, and that's something that they don't have in common. So we want to make sure that the learning centers and activities reflect and accommodate differences among students in the classroom. So materials and activities for linguistic students, making sure that they're labeled, all sorts of things. And this is second grade. They need to accommodate the differences and the needs of students, cultural differences and linguistic differences. And this is the only one that really is doing that. Remember, diversity means difference. So they accommodating difference is accommodating diversity always. And more often than not, the correct answer is going to have the correct, like the verbiage in there repeated in some way. engaging students in skilled questioning, coming up with questions, having pit stops throughout your lesson, framing your lesson and having pit stops to check for understanding. Your ELLs need it really badly. They need time to sort of like digest what they've learned and take time to like check for understanding and negotiate understanding. Your special eds do too. Include using questions, discussion to engage all students in exploring content, extend the student knowledge, fostering active inquiry, getting students to ask questions because you asked questions and now they want to know about this. Higher order thinking, problem solving, and productive, supportive, interactions with between you and your students and students and each other, and including appropriate wait time after your questioning. So let's take a look at this one. And then we're going to end for the day. I'm sorry, guys, that we didn't get to some of the other things we had planned to at the end of class, but we're already over time and we still have, let me see, we're on number 8 and we have to do all the way to 27 and we're on 18. We still have 10 more slides. So what I can do is, if you guys want to stop now and we'll start back where we started. And after I do sort of a deep dive about, I'm just going to give maybe a 15-minute presentation on UDL and designing your learning objectives, sort of reviewing learning objectives and why UDL works so well, helping you build your lessons and being mindful of all of the students' needs. Okay, so see, people had to go. So I'm gonna let you guys go. I don't want to take any more of your time on a Saturday already. That is more than enough that you've given. And teachers are the real MVP. Pre-teachers are the real MVP. Thank you for all of your time and your work and your contribution to the class conversation. I look forward to our classes every Wednesday and Saturday. Oh, and I also apologize for Wednesday's nonsense. I've been having such issues. I have Spectrum and I have the business, internet, but it's been really, really bad recently. And so I don't know what's going on. And hopefully we didn't have any issues today. I mean, not hopefully, thankfully we didn't have any. Hopefully we don't continue to have any. So if there are no further questions, I'm going to let you guys go. Have a beautiful...
Can you open back up my PPR test? I know this is like the 4th or 5th.
Sure, absolutely. I'll have them open it up for you and I'll let them know on Monday and they'll go ahead and open that and then I will see you on Wednesday.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sauceda, for everything.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. You guys have a beautiful rest of your Saturday.
Weekend.
Yes, you too. Enjoy yourselves.
Miss Sauceda, can on Monday they'll let me know when I'm able to register for the test again?
Absolutely. Miss Alvarez will send you a text.
Okay.
Ms. Sauceda, I just had a quick question. I'm sorry that I interrupt.
Yes.
You said that someone took the test and emailed you something and you said something about technology, but I didn't hear correctly what you said about the test.
Let me see.
One of the students that just recently passed the test.
Yes. Let me look for it. Let me see. Yeah, he sent, and I Jalen. I know I looked at it already. Oh, here it is. So, I forgot to mention this one. So an ELL student that knows a lot, and I'm just going to stop my recording at this moment because we're going to talk about